Every great civilization that reaches the pinnacle of vibrational technology faces the same final challenge: the sustenance of coherence. Ratanabá was not merely a city of stone and light, it was a collective mind. Imagine a network where every individual is a processing node, and the peace of one feeds the stability of all. For millennia, this harmony was unbreakable. But the fall did not come from an external invader or a natural catastrophe. The fall of Ratanabá was an event of internal entropy, a fissure in the psychic field that ancient science called the Great Separation. For the first time in eons, the concept of the I, isolated from the whole, emerged. In modern psychology, we call this the birth of the ego, but in Ratanabá, it was felt as a biological short circuit. When a sower began to withhold information for themselves, desiring control over the flow of light for personal gain, the fundamental frequency of the city, the resonance of unity, was tainted. Like a virus in a perfect operating system, the thought of scarcity and the desire for power created noise in the quartz network. And, as we learned in the previous chapter, vibrational architecture responds to intention. The crystal hardware began to interpret this dissonance as a command error. The lights that once glowed with a welcoming gold began to flicker toward a cold blue and eventually an opaque gray. The transition was subtle but devastating. Previously, communication was telepathic and based on the absolute truth of feeling. With the drop in frequency, the need for spoken language arose as we know it today, an imperfect system attempting to explain what the heart could no longer transmit directly. Words became tools of concealment. Lying, something impossible in a civilization of crystalline transparency, became the first weapon of the Great Reset. This reset was not a divine punishment, but a homeostatic response from the Earth itself. The Earth, as a living organism, realized that Ratanabá's technology, in unbalanced hands, could tear the fabric of reality. If a human being in a state of fury could access space warp portals or the zero-point energy of the pyramids, the damage would be cosmic. Thus, Earth's security system, the intelligence of the biosphere, initiated the isolation protocol. Ratanabá's neural network was disconnected from the central source. The Sowers, who previously lived for centuries in states of ecstasy, began to feel the weight of gravity, the weariness of the flesh, and the shadow of fear. The fall was literally a drop in the vibrational scale of consciousness. The deepest impact occurred at the biological level. Human DNA, which functioned with 12 active strands of light acting as a multi-dimensional antenna, underwent compression. Modern genetic science calls the parts it does not understand junk DNA. But in Ratanabá, these filaments were the bridges to ancestral memory and stellar connection. During the Great Reset, these filaments switched off. Humanity entered a state of profound amnesia. From one moment to the next, the inhabitants of Ratanabá looked at their crystal towers and no longer knew how to operate them. Technology that once responded to the voice and the heart was now just cold, silent stone. The fear of death, something that did not exist before, became the master of the human experience. This original trauma is etched into every cell of our bodies to this day. It is the void we try to fill with consumption, power, and external technology, without realizing we are merely trying to rebuild on the outside the network of light we once had on the inside. As the frequency fell, life in Ratanabá became unsustainable. Without vibrational technology to regulate the climate and purify the water, the city became vulnerable. The portals, once gateways to the stars, became mere lifeless stone arches. The great sages, seeing that the fall was inevitable, began the process of legacy encryption. They knew it would take humanity millennia to regain the emotional maturity necessary to handle that power again. They did not try to save the cities, they tried to save the seed. Knowledge was transferred to what we call crystal skulls and memory stones buried deep in hard-to-reach locations. The cities were abandoned to the encroachment of the forest. The sowers dispersed, mingling with tribes in simpler states of consciousness, becoming the gods or teachers of Sumerian, Egyptian, and Mayan legends. Ratanabá was left behind like a server on standby, waiting for a login that could only be achieved through purity of frequency, not through physical force or intellectual curiosity. The Amazon was chosen as the tomb and the guardian. The forest did not grow over Ratanabá by accident, it was instructed to do so. The roots of the giant trees function as acoustic and electromagnetic insulation blankets, protecting the dormant crystals from the noise of our current modern civilization. The humidity and density of the jungle are the natural barrier preventing our current satellite and radar technology from fully penetrating what is hidden underground. The Terra Preta de Indio, mentioned earlier, was saturated with the final information of the fall. It is a conscious soil, keeping alive the biological memory of what we were. While the stone cities degraded, organic life thrived, absorbing the energy that once powered the pyramids. Therefore, the Amazon is the lungs of the world, not only in terms of oxygen, but in terms of prana, vital energy. It is the last active server of a network that was shut down for our own protection. The Great Reset was the beginning of our journey through the desert of duality, an exile of light that lasts to this day.
After the central network of Ratanabá was shut down, humanity plunged into what ancient texts call the Kali Yuga, or the Age of Darkness. But this darkness was not the absence of external light, it was the blindness of the soul. Without a direct connection to the vibrational source, the human brain began to operate at survival frequencies, constant beta waves, the fight or flight state. The separation, which was once just a dissonant thought, crystallized into social structures. Where there was once cooperation through resonance, hierarchy through domination emerged. The cities of light were replaced by fortifications of rough stone and wood, designed not to harmonize, but to exclude. Ratanabá's vibrational technology, which was common and accessible to all, became Earth's greatest secret. The few who still remembered how to manipulate resonance, the last sowers and their direct descendants, were forced into hiding. They became the priests, mages, and alchemists of the first post-cataclysm dynasties. In the hands of these guardians of the fire, the knowledge that once served the freedom of consciousness began to be used to create religions and rituals. Symbol replaced experience. Where one once touched a crystal to heal, they now prayed to a sacred stone. The architecture of Ratanabá was fragmented into myths: Plato's Atlantis, the conquistadors' El Dorado, and the Garden of Eden of the scriptures. They were all distant echoes of the same radio station that the world could no longer tune into. Although the physical network was buried, the seed maintenance command remained active. Orders of initiates arose, bloodlines that swore to protect the exact locations of the entrances to the tunnels of Ratanabá, known as the Pia Biru paths. These sentinels were not just human, they were also biological guardians. The Amazon rainforest itself developed psychic defense mechanisms. Those who tried to find Ratanabá driven by greed, the desire for gold or power, were repelled by the jungle's own frequency. Insects, fevers, and inexplicable magnetic disorientation acted as a security system against the untuned. Gold, which for the sowers was merely an electrical conductor and a frequency stabilizer, became the curse of the Great Reset. For the mind of separation, gold was wealth and external value. European conquistadors centuries later would be the ultimate example of this psychic fall. They walked over miles of buried crystal technology, searching for yellow stones to take to distant kings. They did not realize that the true treasure of Ratanabá was not the mineral, but the signal it transmitted. The blindness was so great that humanity began to destroy the hardware, the forest and rivers in a desperate attempt to find coins, unaware they were burning the instruction manual of their own divinity. To ensure the memory of Ratanabá was not totally lost, it was encoded into something modern humans could not ignore: pain and the quest. The Great Reset installed a metaphysical longing, saudade, in our genetics. It is that feeling that this world, as it functions today, with its struggles, scarcity, and loneliness, is not our original home. This incessant search for paradise lost is in fact a neural search engine trying to reconnect to the Ratanabá server.
For millennia, we have been taught that we are limited beings, sinners, or mere biological accidents. This narrative was the control tool necessary so that no one would look down at the earth beneath their feet or inward at the light in their DNA. The psychic reset created a frequency barrier called the veil of forgetfulness. Every time a human being reaches a state of pure joy, deep meditation, or unconditional love, they are, for fractions of a second, piercing this veil and accessing Ratanabá's bandwidth. The resistance we feel when trying to meditate or seek the truth is the inertia of this separation software still running in our brains. Despite everything, Ratanabá is not dead. It is in deep sleep. The crystals beneath the Amazon continue to emit an ultra-low frequency, a pulse of approximately 7.83 Hz, the Schumann Resonance. It is the heartbeat of Mother Earth. This signal serves as a beacon so that human DNA never fully degrades. It is what keeps us connected to life, despite all the electromagnetic and mental pollution we have created. The Great Psychic Reset is coming to an end. The law of cycles, which the sowers knew so well, dictates that after every spiritual winter, a spring of consciousness arises. The time of concealment is ending because the Earth's frequency is rising again. The vibrational architecture is starting to respond once more. Sightings of lights over the jungle, the sounds of trumpets in the sky, and the sudden awakening of millions to spirituality are signs that the Ratanabá server is beginning its reboot process. Fear, which was the operating system of the reset, is losing its grip. The great question of this final chapter of the fall is not when Ratanabá will be found, but whether we will be ready for its signal. Crystal technology requires heart coherence. If Ratanabá were to emerge today in our current vibration of conflict, the encounter would be catastrophic. Therefore, the awakening is gradual. The forest is revealing its scars, the geoglyphs and lost cities, little by little, as we become capable of processing this information without the madness of greed. The Great Psychic Reset was a necessary isolation. We were placed in a light quarantine until we could learn the lesson of unity through the contrast of separation. Now the choice is individual and collective. The login to the Ratanabá network does not require a computer password, but a state of being. We are on the threshold of switching off the ego's software and reconnecting the soul's hardware. The exile has ended. It is time to return home, not by trekking through the jungle, but by raising the vibration of every beat of your heart.